Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining the Blue Horizon seminar series. This one actually come right on time as today we're celebrating the World Environment Day. And on the coming Saturday, we're celebrating the World Oceans Day. So very, very happy to have all the lovely ladies here. And the chairholder of the UNESCO Chain Ocean Governance, so Professor Pierre Fayet, if you'd like to give a few lines to open this seminar, please.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I don't feel too much comfortable. I'm the only man here in the session, so I will be very brief. So I would like to thank you, for organizing this Blue Horizon series, and especially Sophie for organizing this webinar. We started with Sophie the journey on trying to associate the sailing and the science about 3 or 4 years ago now with the Clipper. And now we are working with Gen2, the Gen2 team, and also we're trying to expand a bit with the IMOCA class. So I prefer to let the floor to the speaker, so it will be better than just listen to me, for a few minutes. Thank you very much. Sophie, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Pierre. So I'm gonna give the floor quickly to our chair, Dr. Sophie Quintin. So just a very quick introduction. Sophie is a senior research associate at the University of Portsmouth Center for Blue Governance, who specialized in international relations, law and security, building on a career of 20 years, managing large international aid projects and policy advice in complex conflict contexts in the Balkans and Africa. Her research explores ocean governance with a focus on maritime security and the emergence of West African navies. Her connection with the sea goes back to her childhood, growing up doing all kinds of sea-related activities on the northern shore of Brittany region in France. As an amateur ocean racer and qualified skipper, she has sailed many maritime spaces around the world, including across 2 oceans. This connection with the sea and sailing has drawn her to examine the intersection between offshore yacht racing and ocean sustainability. She has played a crucial role in driving the partnership of our university with the Portsmouth-based IMOCA Gentle sailing team, whose skipper, James, is currently racing across the Atlantic. Well, now I'm giving the floor to you, Sophie.
Thank you very much, Kay, and thank you very much, ladies, for joining me today. And thank you very much all our guests from, I'm assuming from everywhere around the world, for listening in today. Why have I proposed to do this seminar? Because there's an immense beauty and simplicity in sailing, and it's an activity that I've done, as he explained, for a long time. But sailing isn't just a sporting activity and a leisure activity. It's also part of a bigger picture of blue economy, and that's in many ways the angle that we come in. The blue economy being the implementation of development with sustainability as a main goal. So sailing obviously is as a sector is grown tremendously since we started sailing about 5,000 years ago, and particularly in the last 10 years in peacetime, obviously. I'm just going to throw a figure here which concerns primarily the United Kingdom. From 2022 to 2023, there's been a 12.5% growth in the industry in the UK alone. So a lot of interest around by the general public, by people who can afford it, to go sailing, and sailing has risen as well as an area of interest for women. In fact, also along those lines. So sailing, the blue economy. All of those have meant that more and more women, thankfully, have engaged in the world of sailing, be it as a leisure activity or as a competitive activity. And there's been some fascinating developments, a lot of initiatives, and our guests today are going to be talking about their role in developing initiatives as women doing sustainability, but also in the promotion of women in sailing in general. So the way I've conceived this seminar is to try and, with 2 main objectives in mind. The prime objective is for us as a research institution is to bring the debate into academia. You'd be surprised perhaps to know that there's been very little research, and it's important because this is how we create knowledge, and this is our aim. So this is why we're all here today. And of course, the second and important objective is to start this conversation, bring this conversation into the realm of academia. And for this purpose, I have had the pleasure to communicate and with 4 fantastic women who I've met along the way of my own endeavors, sailing endeavors. And I'm going to ask them to speak in two clusters. The first one is empowerment and policy. We will have Louise Océane representing a French organization with an English name, Women for Sea. Could explain for us why you've come up with an English name for this? And in that first cluster, we will have Meg Riley from the USA, who is the executive director of the Magenta Project, speaking about the drive or her activities behind the drive of promotion of women. In the second cluster, we will focus more on sustainability in one particular sector, which is offshore racing. And it's a pleasure for me to introduce Imogen and Dinhan Price, who is a sustainability manager for the IMOCA class, and Claire Vaillet, who's also a sustainability manager, so quite a powerful team. Imogen will be speaking on the quest for more sustainable racing, life cycle assessments, so quite an engineering oriented topic, but very important to start to understand the process and how the IMOCA class has been at the forefront. And the second presentation will be about collision with marine creatures and what in this particular case, the IMOCA class has done to promote this endeavor. The key themes, of course, are important sustainability. The sea is facing many challenges, and we're all working towards resolving this in our own way. Women are facing challenges in engaging with sailing as a sport. Not just challenges, we all obviously have a common link. We're all sailors in this panel, so I'm excited for them to share not only their experiences as women, but as sailors with us, and how important it is in their lives. So the themes obviously are taken from the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, achieving gender equality and empowerment for all women and girls, and SDG 14, life below water, which is to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first 2 speakers. A short presentation of Louise Océane Delion's background. Louise was born in the southern part of France, Basque region, studied at the University of Plymouth in marine biology and coastal ecology. You have actually co-created an expedition, a sailing expedition in 2021. You have just spent 2 years sailing around the world, and you started working for Women for Sea in 2022, where you have developed the communication and taken a lead role in community coordination. Meg Riley, as I said, is the executive director of the very well-known and so important project that the Magenta Project is. Meg, you're born in the United States, New Jersey, state of New Jersey. You are a very accomplished sailor in your own right, having been the youngest American female to win around the world with the Clipper race. So we have this in common, the Clipper race. We're both Clipperites. You have, like myself, done lots of racing, organized racing teams. But importantly, you've been working for this organization, which has been quite a beacon, I think, of in terms of sustainability and development of of women in the sport of sailing, and having an organization which has won 2 awards, the World Sailing 11th Hour Racing Sustainability Award and the Dame Charity Award as well. So I will now give the floor to Louise for her presentation on the theme that she's chosen. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie, for this introduction and for organizing this event. Can you see my screen? I think you can, right? Well, thank you everyone. And so it's the first time ever that I'm presenting Women for Sea in English, so bear with me if I'm looking for my words. But yeah, it has an English name, but we're actually based in France and all our communications are in French, but maybe one day, and maybe that's why we've chosen like an English name, it's because potentially we'll be going further away than France. So when I get asked what I do, and I have to like sum it up in like one simple sentence, I say that I work for this nonprofit organization at the crossroads of ocean conservation and women's empowerment. Of course, it's way more complex than this. So I'll try to like give you a like little introduction on what we do. So first, I want to touch really briefly on the founder, because it's really why Women for Sea was created, is because Natalie was in a completely different industry before. She was working as a model, and then she just went sailing once and completely loved being at sea. And she made like this huge like switch and decided to become a captain. So she did all the different exams and certifications to become a captain. But then when she started working in the industry, she was like finding it quite interesting not to see as many women, and also all the different comments that she would receive as a woman working as a captain. You know, I mean, there's so many stories I could tell, but I'll try to keep it short. So first she realized there was not many women, and then also being at sea and being sailing, it was really what like inspired her, or like connected her to the sea and made her like want to protect marine life and marine biodiversity. And so she kind of brought these two things together and decided to create sailing expeditions with women on the topic of ocean conservation. So that's how Women for Sea first started. It was sailing expeditions in the Mediterranean Sea. But then the movement grew a bit bigger, and now it's becoming like something else. So now we bring different women, so mainly in France, who support each other, inspire each other, and work together to better protect the sea. So our method, or our DNA, is the Feel, Learn, Act. And it's really in this order, because we strongly believe that if you want to better protect the ocean, then you have to feel a connection and emotions towards it. So it's really important to focus on that, or to create this foundation of strong emotions and connection. And then that's what makes you want to learn more about it. So learn about the issues, learn about what you can do, so that then you can act accordingly to better protect the ocean. So through all our different projects, that's what we're trying to bring. So our two main goals are to connect and gather women so that they can inspire each other and they can act together, and to also create this new relationship to the sea, again with this like emotion baseline, so that we can protect it more effectively. So we've got a growing community. When I started working for Women for Sea 2 years ago, there was 30 members. Now we are nearly like 300 members all over France. They come from all different backgrounds. We've got scientists, divers, but we've also have women who don't know how to sail. They don't even live by the sea, but they all share this common passion for the sea and really want to like protect it. And again, we try to follow this Feel, Learn, Act, where it's like feel to feel part of a community so that you can rely on other people, in this case women, and support each other, but also learn from each other, learn from all the different expertise that are part of the community, and act together. So either act through the Women for Sea projects that we offer, or act individually or like collectively within the community, help each other through the different projects. So one of our main projects, there's many, but I feel like I wanted to focus on this one for today. It's the project We Are the Sea. So in French is Nous sommes la mer. And it's interesting because mer means sea, but it also means mother in French. So, but it's written as We Are the Sea. And so the idea is to bring women who do not have access to the sea, and we bring them sailing. So it's in Marseille, in the southeast of France, by the Med, where the organization is based. And we bring women who are in difficult positions, whether it's financially, family-wise, home-wise, and they really don't have the opportunity to go sailing. So we bring them on board for a whole day sailing, and we bring our Women for Sea method. So again, with the feel, learn, act, and there's a huge emphasis on the feel, because there's always like a time of meditation and connection to the sea, so that you can feel the wind, listen to the water on the hull, and just come back to the present moment and be here at sea. And then we teach them how to sail a little bit, and we bring them snorkeling to discover the local marine life. And then there's always like a wide range of women on this boat, so it's always a way to, think outside of their bubble, and, get like a huge dose of inspiration with what other women went through. And then we also talk about how they can also, at their scale, protect the sea. And the other side of this project is bringing back, basically, we've got the first part, which is bringing women at sea, and then it's bringing the woman of the sea on land. So we do that through different portraits that were broadcasted in the whole city of Marseille. It happened like 2 weeks ago, where 15 different women had their portraits and testimonials broadcasted in like really symbolic places of Marseille, and they're all working in like different industries, but all working to protect the sea. So the idea was to share their stories and offer new role models, and just to inspire also people and shine the light also on the work that they do. And then, so although all of our projects are really not in the competitive sailing industry, we've recently teamed up with Azenor, who I think is part of the people watching this webinar. But Azenor is starting her offshore sailing journey, and she contacted us because she really wanted to bring these two topics together, the ocean conservation and also the inclusion of women in this industry. Because as a woman, she's been confronted to different barriers and challenges as a woman in this industry, but also she's putting like a few things in place to reduce her impacts on the sea and on the planet in general. So we teamed up with her and trying to also bring something in this industry as well. And
Thank
we've
you.
got
You've got one more minute, Louise.
Yeah, that's my last slide. So I just want to say there's so many other projects that we do with kids, even on land, in the mountains. Now we've got like a whole adventure going from the mountains to the sea, raising awareness about how the sea is everywhere. We've got different think tanks. So there's many things we can do, that we do. And I've put the different I mean, not the link, but the handles where you can follow us. It's in French, but maybe one day it will be in English. So yeah, thanks for listening. And Sophie, I'm done.
Thank you very much, Louise. Now it's your turn, Meg. You're up.
Thank you. I loved that, Louise Lucian. That was a lot of similarities. So I'm very excited to share with you all from the Magenta Project perspective. And I'm often in your position, and just last week, where I am the only non-French speaker around, and we work with the Imoca class, and Imogen and Claire are my translators. So I'm happy to be able to share in my native tongue and hopefully reach a nice wide audience about the Magenta Project. It is a global charity. It's based in the UK, but I'm from the US. We do a lot of work virtually, so good work on sustainability there. But also that we really try to drive more equity and inclusion through our global sport platform. So we're going to chat about what that means and how we can all kind of work more in diversity, equity, and inclusion with a strategic mindset, as well as bringing in more members of our communities to help drive those strategies forward. So the vision behind the Magenta Project is really using our unique sport, which has the opportunity for women and men to compete equally. We have a lot of classes and different events like the Imoca class, where men and women have the opportunity that they can compete on an equal playing field, both with and against each other. However, we do have a metric here. This is old, and we know that the data, as you mentioned, Sophie, is not there, and we want to work together to help update that. But from the International Maritime Organization 2021 report, it is believed that less than 3% of all international seafarers are women. We at the Magenta Project want to try and get that towards 50% as much as possible, but getting the metrics as well as having an action plan on how to get there is really the core of what we do. So for example, we work with the Imoca class, which currently has very strong metrics in comparison to the rest of the industry. And that is because of a dedication to their inclusion and diversity strategies. So they have 15% of their skippers are women, which, that's still a metric point of improvement, but it's above the industry norm and above Fortune 500 CEOs, which is only 10% women. We also, in the Imoca class, have 50% female in leadership positions. So women in leadership positions is a big thing of what the Magenta Project tries to use to help drive these equity and inclusion strategies. So it's really being able to utilize this global sports network that we have in order to drive more inclusion and inspire more inclusion in the class, the sport, but also in business. So our work is kind of multifold, but it all comes together in how we can really implement these strategies and not just have a vision and an idea, but actually lead to impact. So that's done through our annual mentoring program, also through communication outreach, which is what we're doing here today, talent development, our global talent network, and finally, policy and consulting. So just to run through of our mentoring program, this is something that really any institution can model. We don't own mentoring, but we've really taken it to develop a Magenta model that's become known in the industry. It is a 9-month curriculum where we pair women with experts in the industry along their pathway. So we have actually 4 women who are doing the Mini Transat, and they have Mini Transat mentors to help them guide through that career journey. We also have 3 women who are in OBR. We have women who are post-Olympians developing their careers. So because the sailing industry is so unique and that there aren't really institutions except for the University of Portsmouth, which is one of those few academic institutions that's known for developing maritime careers, there are really no other, well-known or formulated kind of academic programs to be able to help develop careers in the sailing industry. So we've kind of taken a little bit of an academic model that runs the same as a traditional school year. It's intentionally done that way. We believe that the relationship from 9 months to about a year is a great way for the individual mentor to work with their mentee to set them up, and then for them to be able to track and develop their own career goals. So here you can see this is kind of just what we do. We also train mentors to help, and that's our sustainability strategy, because it's difficult for us to be able to scale just working one-on-one with individuals. So our sustainability and scalability strategy is to also train more mentors in the industry, so that they can help continue with this model and support more talent coming up, and not just exclusive to women. We work with a lot of men as mentors, and so that they will help us drive more equality by being part of this model as well. Another thing that we do is communication and outreach. So panels like these, also we just hosted one in New York City last week, or 2 weeks ago now. And so these are opportunities for us to leverage traveling international events like the Vendée Globe, the Ocean Race. These platforms provide a lot of attention, and we've seen that used for ocean sustainability and conservation, which is fantastic. But the elements of social sustainability is also what will help us achieve these grand sustainability goals. And that it's super important for us to include both local institutions and international ones to help drive together this mission for more inclusion and a sustainable industry. We also do talent development, which is very important. So it's not only just preparing these women mentally and getting them the right connections, but also upskilling them. So we've worked with a variety of different partners like Foiling Week and at the AMOCA events to do really hands-on skill building workshops to help elevate women so that they can be more attractive talent to recruiters, to teams and organizations, as more organizations are looking to diversify. So we want to make sure that these are not just women being put into positions due to quotas or rules. These are women who are well prepared, who can serve in these roles and really strive and thrive in the industry through connections with North Sails, Harkin, Future Fibers, and different industries to drive not only women on board, but also those onshore and in STEM careers. And this is also all possible because of our global talent network. Our alumni base is in the several hundreds, just people who have been in the mentoring program. But we also have, personalities, Olympians who are part of our mentoring program. They join our webinars, they help educate. So as you can see here through this panel, it is really a global community that makes this possible, and that we encourage collaborations, and we love to see different organizations who are doing something locally that maybe we can help leverage our global network to make things happen at an international level, but that we also work kind of in the reverse way for the getting grassroots and helping them support. And finally, policy and consulting, just wrapping up. We have taken, different things that have gone on in the industry, like Clarice's loss of her sponsor due to her pregnancy, and then making sure that we are helping women to develop careers and that they can also be moms too. So we encourage you to look into our maternity policy recommendations. And I think that this is a great segue over to AMOCA, who is one of our fantastic partners that we worked with. And every different industry that we work with and organization does DEI differently. So I think that that's really important to know, like, what is right for your organization, what's right for your event, your class, and kind of how can we all get there together and utilize some really nice working models and adapting them to the needs of that organization.
Thank you, Meg, for this fascinating presentation. Clearly quite a broad range of activities here. So you've mentioned IMOCA. This is a good way for transitioning to our second presentation, where Imogen is going to kick off to talk about this life cycle issue. Now, Imogen, you I think, if I recall, you're a graduate of the University of Southampton in marine ecology. You have now worked for a number of years in different areas across agriculture, social economy, and sports sectors under the theme of sustainability. You are from the United Kingdom, but you live in France, which shows the importance of kind of traveling and the international dimension now of the sailing world. Today you're going to be talking now. I understand also you set up this this consultancy, are now a consultant, a sustainability manager for the IMOCA class. So without further ado, I'll oh well, I need to Claire. Sorry, I do need to introduce Claire as well. Claire, you have a legal background, and that makes two of us today. And it is in a passion for the sea that has prompted you in the last 10 years to engage with the offshore racing community and work on sustainability, but also, as I see here, different areas of your water sports. A passion for water sports is what's, I think, key in what I understand for all of us here, and a passion for the sea. So Imogen, the floor is yours for the first presentation of this second session. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sophie. I'm just going to share my screen with everybody, so hopefully you can all see it nicely. So thank you very much for the introduction. And yes, as Meg said, it was quite a nice transfer to IMOCA, because effectively this year we have just launched our partnership together with 11th Hour Racing and Magenta. So the idea is this year we're really going to go along with our diversity program and including more women within sailing, and to really empower them through the class. So today I'm going to present to you what we are up to in IMOCA. So I thought that it would be just quite nice to share with you what is IMOCA, because we are a class. As Sophia said, we're based in France, but we are international. And the offshore racing scene in France is very heavy. But in other parts of the world, it might not be so well known. So I just thought it would be great to give you a little bit of an overview as to who we are, what we're doing, and how sustainability plays a really large part in sailing today. So simply, this is just a little graphic to show you what we're doing and where we are based. So we are the International Monohull Open Class Association. We've been going since 1991, and you may know us because we race around the world doing races like the Vendée Globe, the Ocean Race. There may be some famous faces that you might be aware of, like Ellen MacArthur, Isabella Tissier, maybe Alex Thompson. And through that, we have really developed our class. Our boats today are still 60 foot long, or 18 meters. And we've developed a real rules and with a program for all of our sailors and teams. The class has put in place rules which will allow the sporting equity, the performance, and of course the security when our sailors are at sea. What we're looking at today is looking to develop those aspects and trying to integrate environmental impacts and performance. How can a class, a mechanical sport, use the power of our sport to be able to show a message and to be able to act upon our message, which is sustainability today? So through our class and our rulemaking, we can really adopt different procedures. And so we've integrated for the first time a sustainability program into the class. Our program covers many aspects, as we heard earlier, many aspects around our education, our diversity and integration program, but also what we know, what is part of our DNA, well, that is rulemaking and what we can do towards the construction of our boats. We know that today our boats have got to reduce their impact, but how do we do that when we are just constructing, and how can we integrate that into our boats? So impact reduction. So firstly, I think it'd be quite interesting to show you what is an IMOCA. An IMOCA today is this boat, as you can see on your screen. They're very powerful monohulls, which again race around the world. Some of them have foils, which you can see are these aspects which are just jutting out of the side of the boat. We have large canting keels, which allow the IMOCAs to not only sail around the world, but to fly around the world nowadays. So it's incredibly interesting. And on top of all of that, they're normally sailed by just one person on board, like we can see here. For the ocean race, for example, they're sailed with a team. And so we can see many people also going around the world. Our vessels, however, go through production, and we are producing through over a 4-year period. So from each Vendée Globe, we're producing around 10 IMOCAs in a 4-year period, which may not seem much for a class, and 10 boats isn't that many. However, there is always an impact which is linked to that. And so what we've done over the past 4 years, so starting in 2021, we started to analyze all of our vessels. So all of the new vessels which were being built. The idea was to do life cycle assessment through these vessels. Those of you who don't understand what a life cycle assessment is, well, it's a systematic analysis of a product. And we look at the potential impacts which are linked to a product. It can also be a service, but in our case, it was a product, which are the boats. It enabled us from there to really identify all the hotspots. The hotspots which are linked to boat production. So I'm going to show you our graphics, which we have here today. And so I'm going to start from here, going down, and then work my way across the screen. So what we've called this is our carbon cap project, or our impact reduction rule. Like I said earlier, IMOCA develops rules so that we construct our boats in the best possible way. Today, we've implemented sustainability factors into our boat construction. And so through our LCAs, we were able to understand the impacts, the hotspots which our constructions produce. It's easier if we look at this graph here, which can show us that, for example, the molds and the boat platform and the foils, for example, are some of the most polluting elements of our boat design today. And it's what goes into those elements which make up the most of our impacts. And it's the elements around carbon fiber that we use. It's composite, which is usually mixed with a resin. And it's those aspects which are polluting, which are the most polluting aspects of our boat construction today. So what we're doing is we're going to be looking specifically at those elements to be able to reduce our impact. We've decided that this element is going to be corresponding to the Sustainable Development Goal 13, which is, of course, climate action and wanting to really help people reduce their emissions. So if we as a class can use this rule to really spread our message across the industry and show what are the potentials to reducing using carbon fiber across these 3 pieces, we can use other materials today, like maybe flax, or limiting the amount of parts that we build to reduce our impact, then our impact globally can be a lot less, as we'll be getting on board a lot more actors and stakeholders around this question. So today we're working with over 50 stakeholders to really try and work out what we're doing in order to reduce our impacts today. And it's through this exchange of knowledge, exchange of solutions, that we're going to be able to reduce our impact from what it is today, which is around 400 tons of CO2, to a much more aligned number, which will correspond with the Paris Agreement. So the idea is that any boat which is constructed from now to 2028 will have to have a 60-ton CO2 reduction minimum. Doesn't mean they can't go further. Teams, of course, can go further, and they can reduce by even more. And they can also reduce by many other factors, which aren't just materials. It could also mean that teams share the design of their boats, especially around the molds or the foil constructions. So there are many elements that they can start to dig into to be able to reduce their impacts for the boat construction. This is just one part of our whole sustainability program, but it's an element which we're really working on precisely so that we can really see transparent and global impact reduction across our sailing community. Hope that was all right for you, Sophie.
Claire, thank you very much for this fascinating presentation. Love the infographics, lots of food for thought there in terms of construction. And now we're moving on to the issue of collision of these fascinating crafts and what the IMOCA class has done to prevent those. Claire, over to you.
Thank you, Sophie, for the introduction. So I just would like to start in reminding that today we have estimated more than 75 marine species who are impacted by ship collision over the world. It can include whales, seals, sea lion, penguin, sharks, and other fishes. And this number is probably underestimated because we need more information we need more information to find a solution. Today, any vessel is concerned and involved in collision with objects and animals, and our IMOCAs are obviously not spared from this risk. And that's why we've been starting to work on the subject 3 years ago, mainly of technical solution. But we came up with the conclusion that we needed to have a more global overview and strategy to limit the risk at the maximum. That's why in last year, during the Ocean Race, we've created the Marine Mammal Advisory Group with 11 Sauer Racing and the Ocean Race to promote a global strategy that goes over the 5 main interests that are listed here. And we'll go through this 5 of this now. So the objective of the group of work is to protect biodiversity and explore together a solution to strikes in the sailing industry. So as I just said, the founding members are IMOCA and the Ocean Race and 11th Hour Racing, as well as 11th Hour Racing team. But we also have members that are sailing event teams, race organizers, technical suppliers, marine sciences, and education program. And this is an open group, open to anyone who wants to join and to help us to find some new solution. So the starting point of the MAG, the Marine Mammal Advisory Group, is having access to the most recent and the best information available. But the complexity of the topic mean that we also need the best interpretation of expert support to provide and to understand the information. That's why we are surrounded by scientific experts who help to provide, analyze, and support us to limit the risk in our global approach. On this map, which has been compiled by WWF, shows that there is some really identified data, but also some area in the world where there's actually no data. And today it's one of the best representation of the data we can have on marine mammal. So the conclusion of this is that the comprehension and the understanding is more represented by the absence of data rather than by the presence of data. This is another map which is interesting that I wanted to show you that gather some complementary data made of density, observation, and collision data, and shows also some clarity on seasonal and geographical area, but also absence of data in some areas. And no data doesn't mean that there is actually no animals. That's where all the complexity of the problem is. And that's why we also need some complementary data, for example, with citizen sciences, that helps to get a better picture of the situation. And that's where it comes back to us. We have sailors who are actually the first witnesses of the ocean, and they can gather and share really precious information, especially in remote areas. And so that's why we are trying to work with them to educate sailors to understand, to recognize and identify species, and also to do some automatically live reporting. It brings me to our second pillar, which is the hazard reporting system. So with the Marine Mammal Advisory Group, we've been settling and gathering data on strikes in maritime areas, which is what we have called the Marine Strike Log. Today, it gathers the most important data on strike at sea and represents about 600 strikes since the 80s. And we are trying to fill in with information that we are gathering through a system which is called a hazard button. It's a tool that we've been created to help the sailors to identify or signalize a strike or an observation around the boat while racing or training. And the observation or the strike is shared to all the user of the application around the boat. So it's used through the routing system. So you can see a picture here of the identification and the routing system. So today it's used on Adrena, but it could be used on other systems in the next months and years. And so the three objectives are first to raise awareness around the boat, to collect scientific data, and third, to fill in the International Rail Council database to fill in their own database. And the overall idea of this project is to create a global reporting system where we will have all the ocean players be using different interfaces to gather data that will go in the same database, and then we share the information to all the interface users. So it will allow us to have a really complete and global information sharing system. And this information helps us to work with race organizers to limit risk while racing. The main idea is to help them and to decide where, when, and how to race, and how to keep boats and diversity apart. And if not possible, what action could be taken to mitigate the risk. So we are working with race organizers to promote the importance of working on a biodiversity plan that will look differently depending of the size of the event, the geographic areas, if of offshore or inshore racing, the species that are concerned, but also the potential legal laws that are legal requirements that are put in place. And complementary to this, we also have a way to interpret the to reduce the number of collisions with statistical modeling by referencing species distribution and ship routes, and it helps the race direction to settle some action to mitigate the risk while racing. And for example, we have a race running at the moment, which is New York Vendée, and they have implemented this collaboration. And so far, they've put different strategy in place. First, they removed the starting line from identify and the risky area in New York. They put in place speed zone limitation to go to the starting line. They're putting in place a forbidden zone that you can see here in white. They are using the hazard button for the fleet, and they also have put some waypoints in place to avoid some risk areas. So this is an example of what a race can actually do to mitigate the risk in racing. And the first activation we are working on, and it's mainly a work of a class, is related to technology and innovation. And I've chosen these two pictures to show you that when the sea, the state of the sea is in a high activation, it's hard to see and to detect an animal around the boat. And this picture shows that it's also difficult to identify some information just above the surface of the water because of the bubbles who are made at this area of the ocean. That's why we don't have one technical and unique solution that help to detect risk around the boat. And so what we come up at the moment is working on the surface detection to detect risk at the surface in mixing different data from sensors. So we are using, for example, thermal camera. And the next step is to work above the water, and especially could be with acoustic system, but another risk is to put some more noise in the ocean. So there's a lot of, and the situation on technology solution is quite complex for us. And I see Sophie, so my time is up, so I'll just end with the last thing, and not the least, because education and understanding of the situation is spread all over the four first point that I've talked about. But we are working on an education program, and with e-learning program will be shared in June to the destination, to sailors and race organizers, in order to raise awareness, but also to help them to recognize citizen behavior and to understand which solutions come up to mitigate the risk when at sea. And yes, so the idea is just to, what we want to share with the MOCA class and the MAG is that there's not only one solution, that's a common group of solutions, and that we need to work together to come up with the best way of sailing and respecting biodiversity and the ocean.
Thank you very much, Claire. Thank you, all of you, for absolutely fascinating presentations that really highlight the complexity of the issue of trying to do sustainability and the importance of collaboration and international projects. To get a little bit of a discussion going, I'm going to bunch up questions, so if you could be fairly brief in answering them, that'd be great. And I'm starting with the first group, where I find that the key theme here is not to restrict your activities to those, but it's social. If you do content analysis, the social dimension of your work has been quite prominent, of both your organizations. Social goals for trying to bring women who've not had any connection with the sea. Social sustainability, really an important theme and this idea of building communities and going beyond borders. So my first question is to you, Louise. How do you explain the success of your organization that seem to have taken you aback? Why are women wanting? I can say from my own perspective that for me, sea is therapy. But how do you think that? Why are you so successful in France? And what's your answer to that?
That's a good question. It's true that we, like, almost every week we receive emails of women being like, I can't believe you're doing this. Like, it's exactly what I was looking for, this like mix of love for the sea and like conservation. And it's really interesting. I think as we already talked, Sophie, I think all women have this, or who joined us have this connection and memories and connection to the sea. And so knowing that there's a place where they can meet other women in a really safe environment and safe place, well, they're like, I guess that's why women are like, okay, cool, like I finally have this group of people that I can identify and relate to, and to share this same love for the ocean. And I think, as you said, the ocean it's the freedom, it's healing, it's it all brings us like quite deep, it goes beyond the joy that you feel when you're in the sea. It's really, really powerful. So yeah, I think it's a mix of all these things.
Thank you for that answer. Linking this to the idea of communities and what you've done, Meg, the extraordinary work that you've done. You've mentioned social sustainability. That to us, this key word is, if there's no sustainability in anything we do, we're just having a very punctual effect. Your organization is English speaking, but you do have a global network. You know, we have Women for Sea and many other. I've met some Italian women who do similar things. How do you see this evolving, connecting more women globally, having more of a kind of a global community, really, basically?
Absolutely. I think with our mentoring program, that's where we've been able to find scalability opportunities, and particularly where you say language and how that's so important to how we develop and connect with our communities. And having multilingual is a tough resource to be able to manage in an appropriate way too. So for us, we are looking and expanding with partnerships with local organizations. So our first one is actually in Germany, Offshore Segeln, with also Float Magazine. So we're using a communication platform as well as a local group that all operates in the German language. However, what we do is we train their mentors, and we train them in English, and luckily they are very great bilingual, multilingual people. So that we do train them in mentoring and our mentor model, but then they take that model and our resources and put it in the appropriate context and need for their group, which often is language and can be in person, but also virtually. So that's how we are working with kind of local groups to train the mentors who can then work with their group individually at a local level in their language, in person, since we do a lot of things virtually. So that's kind of how we're trying to achieve that. Okay, that's great. I was just throwing this question to all of you ladies. Perhaps Imogen and Claire would like to chip in on that side of things. There's a lot of, I was at the launch of the Vendée Globe in Paris with Professor Pierre Fayet, and there's a lot of organizations that do social, have a social goal rather than an environmental goal in the IMOCA class. How do you, is you know, that's obviously a very important dimension as well as it is for other organizations. Any, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll go for it. I didn't know if Claire wanted to chip in as well. Yes, that's true. We do have an awful lot of teams which are looking at more of a social goal. Even though I would say their social goals are definitely there as their communication, and they can communicate at all around this social cause, but it doesn't stop them from doing environmental actions behind the scenes. And I think that's also where we come in as a class, and we can really put forward some of the possibilities that the good practices within their team, so that they can respect environmental norms, and so in that sort of case, that works quite nicely. But yeah, we end up having quite a nice approach within the class where we're really tackling the social and of course the environmental aspects.
The two being very, very much linked. Claire, any thoughts on that subject?
No, just maybe to complete with what Imogen just said, is also we can see more and more boats who are giving the name of the boat to an association or cause, and that shows also the willingness of the sponsors to involve more in social and environmental commitments. And also to reinforce the program and the values we are working on to share with the IMOCA class.
That's great. Good to know. And I was really delighted to see certainly in Paris the breadth of projects from Sam Davies with Heart Foundations and things. All of these things are obviously very much linked together. The oceans affect our health, and we affect the ocean. So this is great. To go back maybe to what you were saying, Imogen, I took some notes here. So there's I mean, all from my sailing experience, all classes have rules about boat building and things, but novelty possibly of your class is to have gone into the kind of level of details and to have included also the climate change element to it. And so would you like to elaborate, and do you think that you're having some success, and or is it just expanding these rules beyond the IMOCA class, and do you think that, or is it just a drop in the ocean?
A very good question. So the rule today is specifically for IMOCA, for our IMOCA boats, but it gives a template, of course, for other classes to use it and take it by their own means and adapt it to their class. So there's that sort of aspect in terms of classes, but in terms of industry, I think it's probably the most interesting part that we're working on today. It's really the fact that we've worked directly with the industry collaboratively from the very beginning of this rule. It's by engaging them in this rule and in the impact reduction that we've seen the most take on this. The idea behind that at first was also to understand what are the difficulties that we're going to see in the future, because changing industrial processes, changing different materials which come on in is something which takes a lot of research and development. So we wanted to prepare the industry beforehand, so that we started talking with them. And gosh, we started 2 years ago, and then really most of last year our time was dedicated to that, really just setting up commissions where we can talk specifically about what goes into building a platform, what are going to be the most difficult elements to overcome so that we can reduce our impact. And it's learning and working with our stakeholders in that respect, which has really led us to constructing this rule in its most, I'd say, like purest form today. And the idea is that now that we've gained all of this knowledge, it should be easier for the wider community to be able to take this rule, adapt it, because also all the other classes use pretty much the same suppliers as we have. And so it should be easier to just implement it, and there should be a domino effect which happens behind it. The idea is the rule is coming into place in 2025. It's been voted in already in April, and we'll be able to start implementing it with the new boats which come forward from 2025.
So it's a great impact there of your work, of you driving this thing. That's really, for me, fascinating to see how we can individually make a difference to do things. The things that we do are actually making quite a bit of difference, I think. I was just going to ask you, Claire, a question about, rather perhaps to elaborate a bit more on the use of technology. And the kind of, is there an international dimension to it, or is it more of a local sort of Bretagne-led thing in terms of the kind of discussions that are going on? But the reason I'm fascinated by your subject, the subject you've raised, is that when I was doing the Clipper race, between the first leg of my or first race of my leg, we hit a whale, and it's quite a traumatic experience for all of us on board. To do so, and then nobody knew what to do with this information. So the theme speaks to me very much, and I'm sure it speaks to a lot of sailors. And I'm fascinated to see how you're going to be using apps and things to try and gather data. So, in other words, could you elaborate a bit more on this, the last part of your thing, which is this technology that, you know, the eye that sees things on the, and is that coming from the industry, or is that simply a sailing, offshore racing thing, or an IMOCA thing?
Well, I guess the start of the work come from IMOCA, but the idea is to spread over all the industry, and that's more or less the approach that we have with our IMOCA strategy. The idea is to test some solutions that are implemented on the most difficult situation for a boat, because there's no you have to be careful about the energy consumption. It goes in a really hard state of sea. The boat is hitting, the boat is flying, and you have all the complex situation is together in the same on one boat. So if we manage to find some solution for for us, then it could easily be spread for all the boats, all type of boats everywhere in the world.
That's fascinating. It's fascinating this drive towards biodiversity and what is going on. Anything that you like to ask each other while we wait for questions coming through? Any questions that you might have or sharing that you may want to do with us? Okay, so I'd like to conclude perhaps. I don't see any questions coming. Hey, do we have any questions from the outside yet?
Not yet, Sophie, but
Okay.
everyone who has questions, please leave in the chat box or kindly raise your hand or I'll go to you.
Okay, that's okay. People have got things to do. CS therapy. What has I'd like to conclude perhaps by asking each briefly to relay or share with us your most important experience, that what's driven you to do what you're doing. Starting perhaps with Louise in Mexico.
It's a hard question. We should have prepared for that. I don't know. I think there's so many different moments that I couldn't like pinpoint one and say, you know, that's where it started. But I feel like I want to share something I've experienced last year. I crossed the Pacific Ocean sailing, and I just spent like 24 days at sea, and I crossed the Atlantic as well, but the Pacific is like something else. It's so big, and for days I was just like staring at the sea, and I was feeling like, wow, there's a lot of water on this planet, and you know how we always talk, you know, the planet is 70% made of water. But when you actually get to experience that and like literally see almost like the whole like ocean all over the globe, it really reminds you how massive and amazing this place is, the ocean is, and how so little we are, and yet how much impact we have on like almost all the oceans. And so yeah, I was experiencing this and I was like, okay, I'm experiencing this like 70% of water. And that reminded me how really we need to act to safeguard this place. And so I feel like experimenting the sea in that way is also a good reminder to what we do and who we are and what we can try to do with our small hands and small brains to like protect this place.
Thank you very much, Louise-Océane. Meg, from your boat, do you have something you'd like to share with the rest of us? What's your deep connection with the sea? What's driving you to do these fantastic things?
Yeah, well, certainly I think it's hard to describe what draws us all to the ocean and why we dedicate our lives to it. But personally, the work that I do with the Magenta Project and why I do that, I was really lucky through my business career and then in sailing to have really, really good mentors. I didn't encounter a lot of people telling me no and that I couldn't do things. And then I was able to rise up into my confidence in sailing through a lot of male mentors and my partner who treated me like an equal. So I was really lucky in that sense. But I've heard way too many stories of people who weren't and didn't have that. So I guess my goal and my objective here is to kind of artificially create that luck that I've been able to have, and help inspire and support, you know, more women and more people to get into an industry that I was not born into, but that if you put in enough effort and if there's enough community and support, it's an industry for everybody.
Thank you very much, Meg. From Claire, since you're online, what's your the memory, or what's your comment on that? What do you?
Well, I guess maybe more from an external point of view, or external experience user, is more than on the subject on which I'm working. I can see in 4 years how we came up from an omerta with sailors who didn't want to see actually the bad situation on strike, coming up in a positive situation where they are actually understanding that they have a role to play, and being actually maybe becoming more ocean steward and not only ocean users. And it's really interesting to see the transformation of people when you take times with them to explain and to explore solutions, and to give them the tools and the understanding of what they could do to bring some positive aspect of from a negative situation turning to a positive situation, and being proactive on a problem actually. So I think it's really from a human side point of view, it's like really rich.
Thank you very much for sharing this. Imogen, what's your
my experience there, that one. I think we as sailors, I think we definitely, or people who sail and have been able to spend time at sea, my take on it usually is when you are at sea, things change quite rapidly. And sometimes using that sort of analogy is quite interesting, because when the situation does change, we've got to act and adapt to the new sea state, the new wind which is coming across. And I think I like to take that as a sort of concept so that I can work towards it within what I do, to think that, well, if we are going to be experiencing a different climate tomorrow, how should we adapt, and what can we do to mitigate some of the potential consequences which could come up. So I think it's kind of taking that aspect and putting it into the work that we do today, and saying, okay, well, what we have to do now is we need to adapt, we need to lower our impacts, and how can we do that? So I quite like the aspect which is, okay, there's a problem coming up, how can we kind of resolve it beforehand and not get caught out by the storm?
Thank you very much, all ladies. There's a question here which I will take for myself and share with you my own experience. I grew up in a family with seafaring tradition in northern parts of Brittany, but I was girls in my day, in my early 20s, weren't skippers. You know, I didn't know anyone. I didn't have these kind of role models apart from a few French yacht races where I could look at, and I decided, because I couldn't. They were telling me, Sophie, you can't do that. It's not, So I did it. I became a skipper, and I've pushed the boundaries, and I continue to do so. The question here, perhaps as a mot de la fin, the conclusion of this fascinating exchange, before we all get on with the rest of the day. So thank you for inspiring talk with insight. If you were able to give one piece of advice to the younger version of yourself 5 or 10 years ago, what would you do? I don't think personally that I would change anything. I would just listen to the voice inside me that said, Sophie, just keep going, keep doing it, and keep sailing, keep exploring, keep pushing the boundaries. So I don't think I would have been, of course, happy to have more guidance, more maybe mentoring, and all of these fascinating organizations that are helping women to plug into this fascinating world, who are listening to us today and will be listening to us on the university channel later on. So anybody has a small conclusion on this? You all, Meg, I see you.
Oh, well, I went to university with a business degree. I graduated without even knowing how to sail. And then I did the Clipper race following the headline of no experience required. So really, it's at any time that you can get into sailing. It's at any time you can change your career path. Yeah, if you want to take your life in a different direction, then go do that.
Exactly. Any other comment on that front, or I can just move on?
I would just say,
Yeah.
don't be scared of reaching out to people who inspire you. Like, just send that email, send that message on LinkedIn. You never know what doors it will open, and usually that's how it works. So really reach out to people, I think.
That's a good thing. Anybody else, Claire, Imogen, or?
No, I think the two girls have explained it completely. Yeah, it's just really
Okay.
just jumping in and jumping on board, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, jump on board. Claire, un mot de la fin?
It's the hardest part for me.
And then I will wrap up, I can promise you.
No, I think just also be curious and try to go to people to understand, don't hesitate to ask questions and to explore.
Thank you. So being curious is what we do at the Center for Blue Governance. I'm really, absolutely delighted to have had you today to explore, to be curious about each other's activities and connect across the boundaries of state borders and on these final world. I want to thank Hey for all the help she's provided into, and also for inspiring this series. Thank you very much, Hey. Professor Fayet, who's left us, for putting his stamp of UNESCO chair on this gathering. Thank you very much. And last but not least, thank you very much to all of our listeners today. Let's continue this blue conversation in other forum. And on these words, I'm going to conclude and wish you all a very good day from the island city of Portsmouth.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Sophie.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
Thank you
much,
all.
all the
Thank
speakers.
you.
Thank you. Our next Blue Horizon seminar will be on 26th of June. Will be on women in fisheries. So follow us for more update. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us.
See you, ladies. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Bye.